Well, hello, and welcome to my cellar one more time. Got a number of different things to talk about tonight, and there was a question that gives me a perfect lead into what I'm doing right now. So I'll read the question. Have you ever run any post-apocalyptic themed games, such as Fantasy Games Unlimited Aftermath, or even TSR's own Gamma World? Only a little. I've played in them much more than I've run them. In fact, I can't actually say I've run anything like that. But I have recently played in Metamorphosis Alpha, and I've recently played in Mutant Crawl Classics. So I've got some. Other than the obvious addition of guns and vehicles, how does running them compare to the more traditional fantasy game? Okay, here's where it ties into what I'm writing an article about right now for Jim Wampler's new Scientific Barbarian magazine, which you ought to go check out on the Kickstarter soon, because it's over quickly, and he did real well on it. So what makes PA, post-apocalyptic, because boy, that's a whole lot easier to type, so interesting? Well, number one, it isn't fantasy. It's not swords and sorcery. It's not wizards and spells. It's not, three-headed hydras. It's a mutant gorilla that can paralyze you with his mental powers. So, is it different? Only in its outward appearance. Otherwise, the thing about playing a mutant is that it's like having 3 or 4 spells all the time. And you only have these 3 or 4 spells. So what your task is to figure out how you can use what you have to your greatest effect. Guess I'm supposed to pull up here. Supposed to be closer. Oh, maybe not. Anyway, it's like, okay, I can do this thing. How many different ways can I find to do this thing that'll get me out of a jam, get me something I want, defeat somebody that wants to hurt me, etc., etc.? So, in many ways, it's just like being a magic user stuck in a rut. Except you've also got pistols and rifles and swords and whatever the hell else you want as weapons. And hit points tend to be rather loosey-goosey in the assignment of. Here's the thing. I just recently played in Luke Gygax's Founders and Legends tournament. I did a Q&A, and then I played in Jim Ward's game on the Warden. There were 6 of us. And I don't want to brag or anything, but all 6 of us made it in and made it out and fulfilled the mission we went for, and nobody died. Now, I'm not sure, but that might be a first. It was quite a game, let me tell you. We rolled up characters at the beginning at random, and I rolled 4 times for mutations. And one of them I ended up using it and saving the party's bacon several times, or at least preventing the party's bacon from being severely singed. And that was called deactivation. It's just a random mutation I rolled up. I could make things stop working. Wonderful skill. Big tank-like sentinel robot comes up threatening us. Deactivate! It stops in its tracks. I had another mutation that I had a super sensitive, super powerful sense of smell. Oh, by the way, I was an 8.5 foot tall grizzly bear. And I had this super sensitive sense of smell. I could smell what had been there a few hours ago, and I could detect poison with just my nose. A very, very handy thing to have. Let's see, what else did I have? Oh, I was my own power system. I didn't need batteries or plugging in the wall. If I held it, I powered it. Handy. Of course, you got to have something to hold. Let's see, what else? Oh, and then I had some sort of magnetic power that I could detect ferrous materials and attract them toward me. And I also found out that if they weigh more than me, they attract me to them. But all in all, okay, this is what I can do. I can shut off machinery. I can power my own stuff. I have this super sense of smell, and I have this magnetic power. Oh man, that's a whole bunch of spells right there. If that's the mindset you're used to being in. Now, if that wasn't enough, of course, being able to do those things, I also had I had a claw for 3d6 and a bite for 2d6, and if I clawed you, I automatically bit you the next turn, and so I could I could just fillet you by hand, or I have these other things. What's not to love about that? Talk about your wide open slaughter hobos. Let's go kill stuff. Our mission was to go and find a piece of technology, handheld, figure out how it worked, and come back. And if we didn't succeed in doing that, don't come back. Because if we did, empty-handed, then our parents were forced to kill us. It's fantasy in that regard. Okay. But it was purely sci-fi mutants from there on. What I was able to do, the things I was able to detect with my skills. Now, other guys in the group also played, they were all guys, unfortunately, all had various skills and abilities in that. And I'll be first to admit, we may have just gotten lucky and had a combination that got us through what Jim had prepared for us. We knew, don't push the pretty colored lights. Chris learned to don't get into power armor until you know how to work it. So what's the difference? Not much. It's just superficial. Okay, I got a laser pistol. All right, you got a wand that shoots a lightning bolt. I've got a grenade launcher. You've got fireballs. There's corollaries there. You're just wearing a spacesuit instead of chainmail. Well, not even a spacesuit. If you're a mutant on a world, you're just wearing whatever. It's not really important, hodgepodge. Think Mad Max. Whatever, doesn't matter. You don't necessarily beat stuff up hand to hand, though I certainly could have beat up a lot of things hand to hand. Everybody relies on mental powers. If you have the right one, you can diffuse or defeat the situation. If you don't, think of something else. Run away, run away, run away. Okay, so that takes care of that question. And yeah, I'm writing an article for Jim about why I think post-apocalyptic mutant roleplay is a blast. It's something new. It's something that stretches the imagination. That makes you think outside that sword and sorcery, demons and dragons box. Next question. Did I ever play Blackmoor? Well, Blackmoor was Dave Arneson's campaign. It was never a game. No, I never played in his campaign. I edited the booklet that had a lot of stuff that was from his campaign and from other stuff we added in. But no. So therefore, people don't ask me to run Blackmoor. Blackmoor isn't something that can be run by anybody except Dave, or and who's now deceased, or perhaps someone who was his assistant DM, such as Gary had Rob Kuntz. Other than that, I don't know anybody that could legitimately claim to be doing that. Is there a big difference between Blackmoor and OD&D? Or OSD&D, as it says. I'm beginning to think now that you must be thinking of something that Dave published after he left TSR, like that original fantasy campaign or whatever that was. It was horrible, terribly written, and wasn't edited at all. But so no, I've never been asked to play Blackmoor. If somebody wanted me to run them through the Frog Temple, okay, I could certainly do that. Blackmoor was OD&D. Now, if Dave were still alive, he'd argue about what was done to it. But the fact is, that's what it was. Thanks for making the video on the physical dress. Oh, okay, yeah. Shoulder's a lot better. In fact, I had to go and get an MRI done today. Taking some NSAIDs for the inflammation. It's really helped a lot. I can use my arm again. And I'll find out next week what the next course is, how soon we'll have to do surgery or whatever. Do you allow fireworks in your Wheel of Blame games? Well, I would. Somebody once gave me a Roman candle as one of the things, and of course the idiots lit it and popped each other a few times and set something on fire. Fireworks would be fun. They're not real useful except as something to startle or distract or whatever. But certainly, why not? I don't think there's so much weapons. I mean, good Lord. I've shot off a few 3 and even a couple of 4-inch mortars in my day. And unless you hit somebody in the chest with one, or they're a dumbass redneck looking down the tube when it goes off, no, they're not much good for weapons. But they are good. They do make a good distraction, especially if it happens to be, mistaken for something a dragon did. That would certainly work out well to the party's advantage, I would think. All right, let's see what else we got here on the list today. Got 3 pages worth of crap stuff. Have I ever run a dungeon with a low-level party and just thrown a high-level demon like a Balrog at them to see what would happen? My party had to use a magic item that just barely worked on it to give them a chance to escape. Well, no, I've never done that maliciously for a number of reasons. Number one, it's kind of mean. Number two, I've never run a campaign, a long enough prolonged campaign to do something like that to a group of players. If I were feeling frisky and did something to a group, now I have been known to drop horrible things on players in my convention games, even before I started doing Wheel of Blame. But I'm kind of a softie. I always like, there's everything I write or design, there's a way out. There's a dodge, a weak spot, call it what you will. And so I don't feel it's fair to just, hi, you bunch of low-level guys, meet Bob the Balrog, because all those low-level guys are going to be rolling up lower-level guys all over again, unless I made it so that Bob the Balrog was having a bad day and couldn't ignite, or something of that nature. Otherwise, that's just malicious glee slaughtering PCs. Okay. All right. Now I've gotten some information of Record of Lodoss War was a Japanese anime based on D&D. I recommend watching it. A second person responded, not just based on the original light novel the anime was based on, was in turn based on a Let's Play used to advertise, the Japanese release of D&D. Well, now I know I got to look this up, which I will do tomorrow. So I'm definitely going to look at this. Anything that I can see that's directly D&D inspired, I'm always interested in at least looking at. Oh, pardon me, dropping. Okay, this hope I'll be feeling better soon. I'm feeling much better, thank you. We had a chance to do a side adventure today in our trio group. Faced off with some island warriors, blow guns with poison darts. My wizard took a dart before he could react, but survived. We ended up killing all 11 of them. Next session, we'll carry on through the forest towards some ruins. Of course, I'm poisoned. 6 hours duration. Well, I'll be the first to admit that every once in a while, as a DM, it was fun to just give them a few things to slaughter and let their bloodlust drain off a little bit. 6 hours poison. Well, it's no big deal, is it, if there isn't anything happening within those 6 hours? But yeah, a little blow off every once in a while is good time, good fun. Now, I run the risk of having several people tell me how wrong I am, but I really don't give a shit tonight. Okay, next question. Pardon me. Can characters develop a resistance to magic? I'm not thinking of saving throw level growth, but building accumulated resistance over a time to a particular spell or element. I would say no as a general rule. And as to the second half of the question, a particular spell or element, how exactly would that work? That's what amulets and charms and stuff are for, to give me immunity to those kind of things. It's not like in the old days when we didn't have thieves per se, and we would do just, performance awards. It's not like it's not really like that. What spell are you going to continually, are you going to continually brave something that's got a sleep spell on it and fall asleep 12 times and hope you wake up when it rains and eventually it won't work on you? I don't think so. I don't think that due to the nature of magic, however you define it, I don't think an immunity to magic, an innate physical or mental. Now, a mental immunity to certain types of magic, maybe some special training to resist charms or to see lies or something, I could go along with that given the circumstances. The right circumstances, I could go along with that. But just to say over the course of 10 years adventuring that you've become less susceptible to sleep spells, not unless you're wearing, an amulet that helps you. That's what amulets are for, to give you a limited specified immunity to a certain thing or a certain type of spell or a certain type of charm. In my opinion, that's what amulets are for. Okay, here we go. We're going to get real philosophical now. Why use classes or class restrictions? Why is original D&D not wizards and clerics in full armor using every weapon, but their different kind of magic is what separates them? Okay. We'll go way back to the beginning, and I'll quote the creator. I asked Gary one time, in some words or another, why is it this way? Why fighter, cleric, and magic user? Fighting man, cleric, or magic user? And he said that those three archetypes kind of fit the best in the body of work that he was, what he had read that formed the basis of his fantasy world, Appendix N, in other words, that those were the three archetypes. The guy that threw magic around, the guy that beat things up with his sword, and the clerical type who was somewhere in between, had these other abilities to make people feel better, but could still somewhat adequately defend himself in a fight. You have to look at the various characters from those books in Appendix N, especially the first Appendix N, not the second edition one. Look at those books, look at the protagonists in the stories, and you'll get a good idea of why there are classes. You can't do everything. Now, there are books now, writers writing now, that don't believe in that philosophy. But you have to consider Gary's background, his fantasy background, as outlined in Appendix N. That's what we had to work with. Now, there's been, since then, because fantasy has become so popular, there's 10 times more books out there. Not everyone's real good, but there's 10 times more of them. But that game was based on those three archetypes for that reason. That's the way he set it up. That's what he knew. That's what he knew most people would know, would be able to relate to that. And no, everybody shouldn't be able to do everything. Magic users are hampered when they're young. When they're low level, they're very vulnerable. Fighters aren't too much better when they're low level, but they do get better and bigger and brawnier. Though that's a misnomer. They get more skilled, more skillful. In fact, they may get more slender if they were kind of, baby fat before it started, whatever. That's why. You can't have, if you gave a wizard the ability to wield magic swords, some low-level wizard somewhere is going to find a whiz-bang sword in a tomb, and all of a sudden he's dominating the campaign. Let's see. Wizards couldn't use iron, couldn't use metal. Part of that was the prevailing thought that iron interfered with the transmission of magic. In many, many different tales and threads of tales, iron interferes with magic. Fairies and elves can't touch it. Now, not Tolkien's elves, but the elves of England and France, and the mischievous, prank-filled elves and fairies couldn't touch it, so they couldn't either. And now we're going to have, I got a lesson. I'm not even going to go into all this. I got a lesson again in the pronunciation of boule, and why the way I said to pronounce it is all wrong based on the normal usages of English. And okay, I don't dispute that, but it doesn't matter. It's not English. And we can argue about it forever. And no, I realize that the people that it's not meant as a sign of disrespect. I don't take it that way. But God darn it, I said it's pronounced boule. Why isn't that enough? Why change it? When I printed pronunciations, phonetic pronunciations, I printed phonetic pronunciations. Why do you want to argue? All right. One last thing. I'm going to be a princess. Yeah, I know it sounds weird, doesn't it? Peter Atkinson invited me to play in a celebrity game at Gen Con. And we're all going to be excellent princesses because we're going to Awesome World. And we're little girls that get whisked off to Awesome World. And we're all princesses. And I'm Princess Nyla P. And I'm all about gardening and green vegetables because I love them. And my weapon, my sword, if you will, is not a sword. It's a garden, one of those things that's, let me get over here. It's about 3 feet long. My camera's not wide enough. And it's one of those gardening wands that has about 6 settings on it. And of course, mine's magic, so it always has water in it, even though I don't have a hose. But I have those 6 settings that I can use. And I have my special pet's a flying monkey that can pick me up and carry me short distances, unless they let me have my unicorn named Sugar, who farts pink clouds that smell like cherries, raspberries, and strawberries. And when Sugar poops, gumdrop bushes spring up from the poop and produce gumdrops. But I don't know if they'll let me use that. Anyway, we got 4 old guys playing little preteen princesses in a game that's designed for kids. So it ought to be fun. We're planning on having fun. We have our backstories and all. It's a bunch. It's going to be Peter Atkinson. And if you don't know who Peter Atkinson is, he's the guy that owns Gen Con and used to own Wizards of the Coast until they let him buy him out. And Mike Pondsmith, who's an amazing game writer. I'm blanking right now, trying to name a couple of the books he's done. He's more sci-fi and I believe he's more sci-fi and modern stuff than old. Who else is playing? Old Stefan Picorni from Dwarven Forge. He's always a hoot. And let's see, who's the 4th one? Stefan, me, and Peter, and Mike. Oh, that's it. There's 4 of us. So we're going to be the Awesome Princes. I believe that's on, in fact, I know it's on Friday the 1st, or Saturday the 1st. Saturday the 1st at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, lasting until 8. And I'm sure it'll be streamed or tweeted or twitched or Twitter or whatever the hell people do with this stuff nowadays. And then I'll be making one more of these, and then I'm going on vacation for a week. The whole family is going to get together down in Alabama, and if necessary, we'll spend a week quarantined with each other on the beach. Tough duty. Until that time, please, 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 be smart. Social distance. Wear the mask. We sure as hell are not through this yet. We are still stuck in this weed patch, and we need to solve it. So, stay apart. I'm going to be running games online, virtually, for North Texas RPG Con. I'll be running some in August and September. I'm talking to some other people about running some virtual games or online games for them. So we can still game. Yeah, it's not the same, putting our arms around each other, but talking to each other, seeing each other makes a big difference. So if I were you, I'd look into it. I mean, if you got a Zoom account, if you got a Discord, go to Discord and set up a server. I've got a server on Discord. I've got it set up so that when I go to play Scythe with my buddies, I just go to Discord, go to my server, click on Scythe, and I'm automatically connected, whichever guys are playing that night. So it's getting easier and easier, people. There's no reason we can't game together. Role-playing, I'll grant you. It's a little tougher with boards and minis, but there are platforms to do that with. I know I play Scythe, I play Ogre, and I'll be playing some others, I'm sure. So take it easy, take care of yourself, stay healthy, practice smart hygiene, and Dodata Govi. Oh, hello. I'm still figuring out when this thing starts. Welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Last man around when them rates went down. Called in Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard brain. ESR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Curmudgeon.